Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most controversial and enigmatic figures in the Bible, Pontius Pilate. Who was this man, really? Was he a ruthless politician, a weak-willed official caught in a tough spot, or something else entirely? Let's find out. Pontius Pilate served as the fifth Roman prefect, or governor, of the province of Judea. He was in power from around 26 to 36 AD, under the authority of Emperor Tiberius. Now, Judea wasn't exactly an easy assignment. It was a politically charged region, simmering with religious tension and resentment towards Roman rule. Pilate's job was to keep the peace, collect taxes, and enforce Roman law, all while navigating a complex cultural landscape. So, what do we know about his personality and leadership style? Well, historical sources outside the Bible, like the writings of Philo of Alexandria and Flavius Josephus, paint a picture of a man who could be quite inflexible and even provocative. Josephus tells us about an incident where Pilate brought Roman military standards, which had images of the emperor, into the holy city of Jerusalem. To the Jewish people, this was a grave offense, a form of idolatry. Thousands of them protested peacefully, lying on the ground for days, ready to die rather than allow the standards to remain. In the end, Pilate backed down and removed them. Another incident involved Pilate using funds from the temple treasury to build an aqueduct to bring water to Jerusalem. While the project itself was beneficial, using sacred money for a Roman public works project caused a massive uproar and riots. Josephus reports that Pilate sent in disguised soldiers who brutally suppressed the protesters. These accounts suggest a governor who was often insensitive to local customs and quick to use force. He seemed to have a knack for stirring up trouble, whether intentionally or not. Now, let's turn to the Gospels, where Pilate plays his most famous role. All four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, described Pilate's involvement in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. The story is a dramatic mix of legal proceedings, political pressure, and moral dilemmas. The scene is set during the Passover festival, a time when Jerusalem was packed with pilgrims and tensions were running extremely high. The Jewish high priests and elders, led by Caiaphas, had arrested Jesus. They accused him of blasphemy, but they needed the Roman governor's approval to carry out a death sentence. So they brought Jesus to Pilate. Their official charge against Jesus was a political one, that he was claiming to be the king of the Jews, which the Romans would see as treason, a direct challenge to the authority of Caesar. Pilate's famous question to Jesus is, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus' reply is equally famous. "You have said so." What's fascinating is how the Gospels portray Pilate's reaction. He seems skeptical of the charges. He repeatedly states that he finds no basis for a charge against Jesus. In the Gospel of John, there's a lengthy private conversation between Pilate and Jesus. Pilate asks, "What is truth?" A profound philosophical question that hangs in the air, unanswered. It's a moment that reveals a man perhaps struggling with the situation before him, trying to understand the strange and silent prisoner who doesn't seem to fear him. Pilate clearly sees that this is more about religious infighting than a real threat to Rome. He tries several times to release Jesus. He uses the custom of releasing one prisoner for Passover, offering the crowd a choice between Jesus and a notorious criminal named Barabbas. He hoped the crowd would choose to free Jesus, but to his surprise, whipped into a frenzy by the chief priests, the crowd yells for Barabbas to be released and for Jesus to be crucified. Pilate is in a corner. He's a Roman governor. His primary duty is to maintain order. A riot during Passover would be a disaster for his career. The crowd's pressure is immense. They even blackmail him politically, shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar." Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar. This was a direct threat. Accusations of being disloyal to the emperor could lead to Pilate being recalled to Rome and facing severe punishment, even death. This is where we get the most iconic image of Pilate. According to the Gospel of Matthew, seeing that he was getting nowhere and that a riot was starting, Pilate took a basin of water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. He declared, "I am innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility." This act of washing his hands has become a universal symbol for someone who refuses to accept responsibility for a decision, passing the buck to others. But was it that simple? For Pilate, it was a public declaration that he was acting against his own judgment, forced by the crowd and their leaders. He then handed Jesus over to be scourged and crucified. So, how should we view Pontius Pilate? It's complicated. Was he a monster? Probably not. The historical records suggest he was a typical Roman official of his time, pragmatic, sometimes harsh, and focused on maintaining Roman authority and his own career. Was he a weak and indecisive leader? In this specific instance, he certainly appeared to be. He recognized an injustice but lacked the courage or the political will to stop it. He prioritized public order and his own self-preservation over the life of one man. On the other hand, some might see him as a tragic figure trapped in a political minefield. He was an outsider trying to govern a deeply religious and nationalistic people he didn't understand. He was caught between his own sense of Roman justice and the intense pressure from both the local elites and the mob. Interestingly, in some traditions, particularly in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Pilate and his wife, who had a dream warning her to have nothing to do with Jesus, are actually considered saints. They are seen as people who recognized Jesus' innocence and were, in their own way, unwilling participants in his death. This is a stark contrast to the more common Western view of Pilate as a symbol of cowardice and moral failure. The story of Pontius Pilate endures because it forces us to ask ourselves some tough questions. What would we have done in his position? When faced with immense pressure, do we stand up for what we believe is right, even if it costs us everything? Or do we compromise? Do we wash our hands of the problem? Pilate's name is immortalized in the Nicene Creed, one of the most important statements of Christian faith, which says Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate. His actions or inactions became a crucial pivot point in what Christians believe is the story of salvation. He is a permanent fixture in history, a man defined by a single, fateful decision made on a turbulent day in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. What do you think about Pontius Pilate? Was he a villain, a victim of circumstance, or something in between? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective.